I'm Sarah Berg, and this is the Women in Media podcast. On the show today, I'm pretty excited to talk to these two women. They have also been in media for many years, working with huge companies, big organizations, and they have just gone out on their own. Please welcome television personalities Colley and Laura Ward, who have just started E-Dose Daily.
Yes, thank you for having us. We're so excited.
Okay, what's the concept of E-Dose Daily?
So E-Dose Daily is your newest groundbreaking female-led digital entertainment news platform. And our main goal is to give you all the content that is still wanted out there, just in a new and innovative way.
Okay.
And we felt with ET Canada ending, there's really a void now in the industry. So we thought, you know what? Let's do it. Let's just do it ourselves.
I do have to quickly mention last night, Canadian Screen Awards. I believe ET Canada picked up an award. Am I right?
Yeah, 2 awards.
Okay.
We actually won Best Entertainment News Program and then Best Live Production for Social Media. And that was for our ET Canada Live, which was our daily digital live show, which was on YouTube and Facebook.
Which Katie led. So
Well, I mean, you're leading me into my next question. So, okay, how did you two meet and, your former lives in media?
So we met at ET Canada. I had actually started at ET Canada back in 2010. I interned there.
Cool.
I had actually come from Global News in Vancouver. And then when I moved back to Toronto, I interned for about 3 months. And then they hired me on freelance. And then I was there for about 2 years. And then ETalk took me for 10 years.
Yeah.
And then I came back for 2 years. And then Katie was there, also an intern.
Yeah.
But it was COVID, so we couldn't talk to each other. So she would pass by my desk, but we never really said hi. And then it was country music that
brought us together.
Yes.
I was going to guess that country music has something to do with it. Just based on what I saw on the E-Dose Daily socials, I'm like, oh, there is a love of country here.
Yes. Yeah.
That was a big part of it. But we actually kind of have very similar stories, just some years apart, which is one of our positives, I think, too, is that we are from different generations. So, she's into stuff that I'm not necessarily into. And vice versa.
I said we should have NKOTB. And she said, what? And so it's just so funny, the things that I'm like, how do you not know new kids? But then, she's showing me TikTok. So it's kind of like a great balance between the two of us.
And we attract different audiences too, in some ways. I interned as well at ET Canada during my final year. I was at Ryerson, or now TMU. And I was in the media production program there and thankfully got an internship at ET Canada. And then that turned into a freelance gig as well. And then eventually turned into a full-time position, which we were very thankful for. And then that's when we met. We've only really known each other for about 2 years.
But then once we were allowed to go to each other's desks, which we weren't for a huge part. And we were like, oh, we like each other.
Oh, it's good. We actually like each other.
Yeah. So you'd find us at every country concert.
Yeah. And as for the work that you guys were doing, talk to me about on-camera, producing, like how all of that looked for you guys before E-Dose.
Yeah, so during our final year at ET Canada, I was actually fortunate enough to get a temporary promotion as the digital media director. So I was kind of leading a team of 8 to 10 digital producers every day with the help of my boss as well. And Laura was more on the broadcast side, but she was kind of dipping her toe in the digital space as well. And she was very passionate about a lot of reality shows, and she pitched her own original series, one for, the Housewives, Below
The
Deck,
Bachelor,
all of it.
90 Day Fiancé.
And so she kind of went to our boss with these ideas, and then that's where I stepped in to kind of help Laura develop these and get them on a digital space.
And I think the really nice thing about Katie, and I think you've worked in media, it's very competitive. And I think sometimes it's very hard with women. There's very few spaces, and there's very few spaces on air. And I think sometimes it's very hard to get the support. And so what was really nice with Katie is she pushed my stuff all the time. She pushed me getting on air. So it was really nice to see that, because sometimes, and like I said, I've been in this industry for 14 years and that's not always the case. So it was just a breath of fresh air to see that. And we pumped out a ton of content and a ton of views. It was really great to see,
And then kind of near the end, we finally had a great rhythm with each other and started doing a few of our own with both of us on camera. Mm-hmm. And then that was quickly taken away, but because obviously of the cancellation. And then we just turned that into a positive and something that we could continue.
So I want to zero in on this part because, misfortune often makes us think differently about how we do things, makes us reevaluate, reinvent, reframe, repurpose, right? And I've certainly gone through some of that myself in the last few years. But as scary as that moment is where you're like, what? ET's done? So how quickly did the conversation happen? And I also am curious, when you're going to build a business with someone, it's almost like a marriage, right? In a sense.
We just said that, actually.
Yeah. You are investing in someone else along the journey to meet you at work ethic and align on, your views and your perspective. So yeah, talk me through all that.
I think because we kind of saw the background, even just of YouTube and the analytics and that, and we were seeing, how many views we were getting. And we thought when it all happened, obviously it was a huge shock and, we're all in tears and it was horrible for that week, but we were still going in for one more week. And I think we were standing outside of Craig's office and we just thought, we could do this ourselves. And so it started jokingly. And then it started off as just a small, kind of looking into how we would do it, the space we would need, the money we would need. So it is kind of even the name, like we sat at Cactus Club for 6 hours trying to find a name that we could get, all the socials, the domain name, everything. So it is kind of crazy now to be where we are and having it all come together. Because I think we started doing it right after, really.
It was really December where we were like, okay, we're going to do this. And, it obviously took a lot because the day of and weeks following, we were devastated. And you could either lean into that and go in a dark hole and, get depressed about what just happened and where you're going to go from there. But I think change, is good and scary, but it's something you kind of have to lean into. And I think another thing we kind of realized was we're not starting over. We're starting from our experience and where our experience has gotten us that thus far. So it was kind of one of those things where we could either let it bother us and bring us down or, turn it into positives. And the best is yet to come.
And the support that we've gotten too.
From our ET Canada.
Yeah. And I don't want to say surprisingly, but it was really nice to see the amount of people that would come and help us, camera ops and editors and just willing to help was really nice.
Yeah. Because, a lot of them too are still struggling, wondering what to do next. So it's not easy for them to be like, oh, here's a helping hand and let me help you with this when we can't give them anything in return right now because, we're just starting out ourselves and we don't have funding and sponsors yet.
But it was also nice too, the amount of, obviously we've made a ton of contacts, PR, labels and all that, but that have really, have said there is a void, and we would send out our first email kind of introducing us, and right away it was like, this is amazing. Like, we're so happy we have you. And that was also really not surprising, but just really appreciative. And we're like, okay, we can do this and we can make this really successful.
Yeah, I love the 2-generation situation here, especially because we're entering this, we're not entering, we're already in it. The media landscape has been completely shaken up. And I talk a lot about this in the conversations I have with women on this podcast, women who are already on my network, just about owning your own content and understanding the value that you bring to how it's produced external to a brand, an organization, or a huge company, right? So now ETOS Daily it's come from within you guys. It's not like something you're attached to externally. So in your experience, I guess through the shakeup, especially with ET Canada, what is your vision for the way you're producing content on ETOS?
I think just being very innovative and free to express ourselves and express other people kind of however we want. We don't have a huge network on top of us telling us what we can and can't say or what we can and can't promote.
Which is so it's just so different because when you've been under that for so long, and then because sometimes we even have to walk ourselves back because we're like, oh, we can't do that. Well, no, actually, yeah, we can. So it is kind of trying to relearn not being
attached
having a boss, I guess.
You are the boss.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
the best. So maybe, you know what, this would be a great time to maybe bring in an example of like something that you would want to do differently than the way it happened in the past, and how.
I mean, a lot of the stuff we did there, we were sitting having conversations in a studio with artists who you don't really get down to like the nitty gritty of their stories, and they might feel intimidated in a big studio
because we could only do a minute 30 stories, and it was very
it was always 1 minute 30,
and very because that's just the way Entertainment Tonight, ETalk, that's just the way it's been for so long. So we
wanted to feel more
casual, yeah, and you can like put your feet up on our chairs, you know what I mean,
or
and
like
you can
another thing that we are trying to pitch to artists and people that we want to interview is like, let's go out in the field and do something in the field and get everyone in more of a setting that they're comfortable in, not necessarily sitting in two chairs across from one another.
Can either of you, and if you both have one, great, remember a time where there was too much red tape to do something like that and how you handled it?
I think there was definitely and you would know, working in media, sometimes you get a list of like the questions you can't ask, and the things that are completely off the table, and usually 99% of the time that's that one piece of that interview that is going to get the hits and is going to get the clicks and everything. So I think now we're able to obviously adhere to that because we don't want to piss anybody off or piss the studio off or whatever, but we're able to do it in such a way that we can kind of go around that, where I think at working with the networks you couldn't do that, because then there's someone on top of you. You're not just getting reprimanded once, you're getting reprimanded twice. But I think now this is giving us a chance to ask in a certain way that we can get around the red tape but not completely blow something up.
And also, I think we want to be the people that artists want to come to share stuff they might not necessarily want to share on a traditional network television show. Yeah.
And giving them the time to do that.
Tell us about an exclusive you've had already.
Well, we've we're big country music fans. So we have underneath Edos Daily, we're having a kind of country music section called Keep It Country. So we've done, Mackenzie Porter, Canadian female, just killing it across the Canada and the States right now. Stephen Lee Olsen, who
gave us an
exclusive. I'm sure you know the song "Blue Ain't Your Color" by Keith Urban. He co-wrote that song, and then he revealed to us that he actually co-wrote another song off Keith's upcoming album. So that was super exciting. Who else?
We had Frank Walker.
Oh, yes. Frank Walker.
We have Hardy coming up, which is really exciting. Both Hardy fans.
Yes.
Couldn't tell.
Sasha, who's a Canadian country artist as well, she has a very powerful story, and she's a force to be reckoned with, I think, in the industry right now. She's another one.
Oh, yeah.
And it's also nice, too. I think a lot of the times at ET Canada, at ETalk, if they didn't have the numbers or they weren't big enough yet, we wouldn't touch them until they got to a certain point where, we're starting out, if they're starting out.
Because for both of us, it's like in 5 years from now that they could be, the next Tate McRae, the next
Justin Bieber.
And I think they say the same thing when they talk to us as well.
Because I do remember what people, and I won't name names, but artists that we said no to that ended up blowing up. And I remember being like,
and I think that's
we could have, had those really good early interviews. But I think sometimes it's too many people upstairs that say no when we're on the ground running and saying like, this person's really good, this person's going to blow up. But
we want to take a chance on people because we hope they'll take a chance on us.
Yes.
Because I've worked, in radio for over 15 years, there were so many times where, over the last 3-4 years, seeing those artists I interviewed 15 years ago, and it's like we're, at this point, 15, 20 interviews deep, right? Depending on which outlet and which red carpet or which award show. And a few times I found myself saying, I feel like I've grown up with you, like in the scene, and hearing the artists say back to you, I know it's so good to see what you're up to. And
well, it's really nice, even like the bonds you form. We interviewed Kaisa, was it Monday?
Yeah.
And she was just so sweet, and just hearing her story, and she was just so supportive of us. And right away it was like, what's your number? Let's collaborate, and it's just so nice to see that.
Because that's what you always hope and want from other women, but sometimes it doesn't happen, and we've all been through that, and we just want to be here to be that example and to be an inspiration for other people watching, that women can support women.
Yes. And she even offered other artists
Yeah.
other interviews for us, again, which is amazing. And it's just so nice to have that kind of support from someone in her position.
Mm-hmm.
outside of, the media landscape, because we've talked about that so much, but is there a personal challenge that you've faced in the industry, each of you, at some point since you started, that really taught you a lesson, and would you feel comfortable sharing?
I mean, I had an experience, obviously one of the networks I was at, where I was trying to get ahead, and I had someone really doing everything they could to push me down. And it was really discouraging because they were in such a higher position than me, and I couldn't understand why, and I didn't know what the purpose was. And there were so many deliberate things that I found out later, that were done. But I think that only kind of pushed me to go further. I knew maybe at that level, I couldn't go anywhere else, but then I just tried a different avenue. But that was really frustrating, and that went on for a while. And I think it discouraged me for a long time.
If I'm picking up on what you're putting down, the lesson there maybe is, I don't like being treated like this. I will never treat another woman like this.
It's also tough with women too. It's like you're worried about how to dress, how to have your hair, how to wear your makeup, because you don't want to be viewed a certain way. And I think also, we've talked to people, the fact that we're two blonde girls.
Three.
Yeah, three blonde girls. So like we understand that, that might not be, the best, or people will have a stereotype that the way they think that we are. But I mean, then we just hope they meet us and we prove them wrong.
Yeah.
For sure. Okay, Katie, what were you going to say?
I mean, I was even going to say, it's crazy to think, and I'm lucky to say that I've only really had 2 years at Chorus, or I guess longer than that, sorry, 4 years. And then now I'm here. So I haven't had as much, work experience under such a big network as Laura have. But I think my biggest thing was just proving that, at such a young age, I was able to do the job that I was handed. And I think I had some people thinking sometimes, well, she's only been here for a certain amount of time. She's only this age. Like, how can she be a leader?
Yeah, you were a leader early.
But I think my main thing was just people doubting me because of my age.
She got that because of her work.
Yeah.
She got that because of the way your leadership skills, everything. And you just won a screen award last night. Yeah. So there, it speaks for itself. You know what I mean? And but that also is a tough thing. And that wasn't just women, that was men too. It was just, it was deserved.
But then on the other side of that, like, I also had so many people cheering me on and championing me, and knowing that I did deserve that role. But it happens in every workplace, no matter what the industry is.
And we do have to shout out Jody Davis,
yes,
who he basically hired me, and
hired me as well.
Yeah, and he won the award last night for the digital. He basically built it from nothing, and he's always been such a champion, and he has helped us so much. And it's just so nice to have somebody that was there for the start of both of us.
And what shines through, but what you both just sort of talked about, is the importance of like focus and not comparing yourself to others, or what opinions might be out there about you or what you're doing, and just powering through.
I think that's the hardest part, is what people think of you and what people say about you behind your back. I know I'm always thinking that, but that's just something you kind of have to let go of. And you're not going to succeed without haters,
Yeah, we had our first hater calling us bookends.
Yes.
They said, who put these two bookends on air?
But
but someone defended us underneath.
That right there shows the audience building process. It's like, for every hater, there's going to be 3 people that jump in and say, hold on.
But we thought,
At least
once we have a hater, that means we're getting somewhere.
Yeah, things are cooking.
Exactly.
I like that. Okay, favorite interview that you have done, either together or if you want to share one like solo.
It's a crazy story. It was my first interview ever. It was during COVID, and it was a phone interview. And I didn't know I was going to be doing it. And one of our senior producers, Stephen Banks, called me about 15 minutes before the interview. He's like, hey, I want you to do this interview with Shania Twain.
Just a little artist.
15 minutes notice. Yeah. Okay.
So he had the questions all for me.
Why couldn't he do it?
I don't know. Oh. I think it was supposed to be a talent or someone, but it was COVID and things changed, and virtual interviews were also just starting and becoming a thing. So that was my first interview ever, and it was Shania Twain. So I'd say that probably just has to be my favorite because a Canadian icon and a country queen. So yeah.
How did it go?
No, I think it went well.
I was going to say let's pull it up, but that was also actually the sad thing is they wiped everything. So anything ET Canada branding is gone. So
really,
we basically, I think we had about 3 weeks. So I just sat there pulling everything I'd ever done off because it's gone. Like it's as if we didn't exist. But like interviews from 18 years ago of Cheryl Hickey and Tom Cruise and all that, like they're gone. It's just that was really sad too. I feel like a huge chunk of history is gone. Like entertainment history is gone.
Yeah, wow,
it's crazy.
Okay, well, what about your favorite interview?
So this was when I had just moved from ET Canada to ETalk, and so it was my first junket interview, and it was in El Paso at Richard Branson's intergalactic space center in the middle of the desert. And it was Will Smith and Jaden Smith. And this was my first junket. And I've never been more nervous in my life. Like my life was shaking.
Especially a junket.
Yeah. And it went so long. And I think he knew how nervous that I was. So he was so great with me. And then actually another one comes to mind is I had, and you will know this, you know who Donnie Wahlberg is, but again, the generational thing.
Just making sure.
Yeah,
Donnie Wahlberg.
I love New Kids because my older sister was a big fan. And so I went to the concert. Anyway, I met him a long time ago and he was really sweet with me. And this was when I was at Carleton. I think I was in third year of the journalism program. So in my media class, I was doing an essay on how the Backstreet Boys followed the New Kids model. So here I am. He probably thought I was so annoying. I'm telling him this. And he always said to me, if you need anything, let me know. Wahlburgers opened here. And I was going to be doing an interview with Mark and Donnie. And I said to the publicist, I said, don't say it's me. And then Donnie walked in and he's like, you actually did it. So it was such a nice, full circle moment of
and you remembered.
Yeah. So that was always nice.
Well, hopefully he'll remember Ito's.
Yeah. Shout out to Donnie.
Yeah.
So how I like to end this podcast in the spirit of community and, promoting other women doing awesome things. Who would you sort of nominate to come on the Women in Media podcast to share their story? Someone you admire in the industry, behind the scenes, right at the front lines, doesn't matter.
Well, I'll say Erica Wark, who was doing fashion on Maryland and The Social, and then she went to the States. We went to high school together. She's a couple of years ahead of me, but it's just so nice to see people from Stittsville, Ontario, killing it. So I would say Erica.
I mean, the first person that comes to my mind is obviously Cheryl Hickey, someone who
she's been on.
Oh, she has. Okay.
Yeah, she's been on. It was before obviously all of this ET stuff happened.
Yeah. I mean, she's obviously been a huge supporter of us, so that's been really nice.
And I do want to say one thing. Sorry, I meant to say this before, but in terms of what people think of you, I was on a work trip with Cheryl, and when you post a picture and you can see people that have sent it. And sometimes that would always make me insecure. And I'd always, why are they sending it or what's wrong or whatever. And Cheryl said to me, she said, every time you see that, think they are saying great things about you. They love your outfit. They love your hair. They love what you're doing. And that was such good advice that I got from her because Because you do sometimes go to the negative places and you get insecure, and obviously anybody on camera or any of that, you're nitpicked for everything.
Yeah.
Bookends, like we were called. But that Cheryl saying that, and now I always think that way. So I never put that in the negative.
Maybe you want to throw out like a country musician.
I mean, Sasha comes to mind too, Canadian female.
I would love to have her. We've talked about having her on this podcast a couple times, just timing hasn't worked out. So, I mean, let's get at it.
I think she was our first guest here.
She was, our first guest that came to our studio. So
she has a Yorkie. I have my Yorkie right beside me.
Oh my God.
Also, I mean, I see your unwell poster behind you. Obviously, Alex Cooper is someone who's just built like an insane
empire.
Someone that we look up to in terms of business models and building
and just not
such
caring.
A community.
Not caring what anyone thinks and just, and look at her now. Because imagine her trying to pitch that to a network way back then. It would never.
Nope. She just stuck with it.
Yeah. I like the way she's kind of evolved over the years, and she's, leaned into her maturing as well and, changed how the show was how when it first started. But yeah, to see what she's done now with the whole network is something that we really are inspired to do.
And the big names she gets. You would never think. I remember when I first started listening to it, what was it, 2018? You'd never think, Kate Hudson's going to sit down with her.
No, I know. It's so ridiculous.
It's mind-boggling. But she is a great interviewer. And Katie always says, we listen to her and it gives us inspiration for, the way she kind of leans into questions and how she handles tough
because she's able, when you said those red lines and stuff that we're told we can't ask. Red tape, sorry. She's one of those interviewers that is able to seem to get around those. And it's because I think they trust her with it.
It's a comfort level.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. So I guess that's like all of us giving you kudos. Alexandra Cooper, if you're ever listening, you need to come on this podcast. I would die to interview her.
We will get her on.
Yes, on both of ours.
Yeah,
make it happen.
Get her on here too.
Big congratulations to you two. I love hearing any story about women stepping out of their comfort zones and doing their own thing in this industry. So I know it's no small feat. Big congrats and thank you for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for the support.